Joel Brown, MineralTracker.
Levels look good. All right, welcome here to the Crude Life Productions, podcast, week in review. We got all kinds of content we do. Magazine articles, which I have to deadline today. Thank you for reminding me of that. Joel Brown, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing today, Jason?
Oh, not too bad. Like I said, I'm kind of thinking out loud, realizing some of the deadlines we do. That's one thing when we just got an ecosystem of activity. We got deadlines every day, whether it's a radio or a magazine or a podcast or a news site. You know how it is. And transitioning to the world of minerals, you guys have information floating out there the same way I do. Just it seems like it's always going on out there. Any sort of aggregate you can get to corral the stuff seems to be a way that helps people in their lives today. So with that excellent transition, describe what MineralTracker is and how you guys are helping the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. So kind of like you said, there's just a ton of information out there. And if you can find a way to aggregate that information, to analyze it, to shape it into a usable format for the average mineral owner. That's really the concept that we've come up with when we began creating MineralTracker. And so what MineralTracker actually is, it's an online software. Any mineral owner or really anybody could go sign up for it. And what it's doing is it's pulling information from multiple sources. In North Dakota, in particular, we are very lucky to have such a great state reporting system here. And so there's a ton of information available regarding the oil and gas industry in North Dakota, but it's not necessarily the most user friendly, and it's not going to be customized automatically to your wells, your interest, to what your mineral asset looks like. And so that's what we've done in MineralTracker. By going and signing up for MineralTracker at mineraltracker.com, a mineral owner can enter their wells, enter their interests. It takes usually less than 10 minutes for anywhere from 1 to 100 wells even to input this information and to get signed up for MineralTracker. And then once that information is input into your MineralTracker profile, we begin pulling information from the Department of Mineral Resources. We pull from the Energy Information Administration. We pull from all of these different sources to combine and say, this is what your mineral asset looks like. And we do things like estimate revenue amounts for past revenues so that you have something to audit your checks against. We utilize an internal database that we've created ourselves to project the future income of all oil and gas wells in the state of North Dakota, and we make that available to our pro users in MineralTracker. We've integrated a comprehensive mapping tool and document storage, and then ultimately, what we think is probably the most important thing about MineralTracker is it's a great tool all by itself, but it's backed up by oil and gas professionals here in the state of North Dakota. And so if there is an issue, which it seems like all mineral owners have some sort of an issue if they're looking into their assets, if there's something that needs to be done, if there's a situation where someone needs to roll up their sleeves and dig into a problem, work on your behalf to correct an error with an operator, need for an appraisal, need for help selling, things along those lines, we really can get involved in any of that on a personal basis as well. And so MineralTracker, we want to be a one-stop shop, essentially a marketplace for if you're a mineral owner in the state of North Dakota, your resource is MineralTracker.com.
You kind of alluded to a little bit about how you pay attention to what's going on out in the industry. You're tracking minerals. It's a pretty cut and dry thing at the end of the day. It's just, kind of figuring out the analytics, if you will, that people are looking for to be customized to whatever their situation is. And that's an art form and a science project in and itself. But you take on a kind of a leadership role around Watford City. I know you do for sure. Some of the things you were mentioning about keeping a pulse on different state agencies and regulations, if you will, that impact the way you have to adjust your software accordingly, makes me feel that you kind of keep a pulse on what's going on at the state as well. The reason I bring that up is I was just looking at, some of the headlines in the last week, and you're starting to see some bills being introduced, and you're starting to see some things happening, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico. When it comes to like the Bakken and North Dakota, we were discussing off the air some of the issues happening on some minerals at the state capitol. I talked with Josh Swanson from Vogel Law up underneath Lake Sakakawea, that sort of thing. So there's dynamic changes. Do you guys follow the stuff that's going on there, or do you just kind of wait for the final call to be done? Because at the end of the day, like I said, you have to adjust accordingly, correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so we're keeping our ear to the ground on a lot of these things. But we come at everything with a very technical perspective. We're trained as petroleum engineers. We're pretty pragmatic in nature. And so, we're aware that there are a lot of things in flux right now for mineral ownership in the state. There are a lot of things being talked about regarding deductions, regarding, the lake bed mineral case, all these different things we're keeping a pulse on, and we're prepared to adjust accordingly, as decisions get made. But ultimately, we don't see ourselves as being, directly input into that decision-making process. In certain ways, we're going to be reactionary to whatever decisions happen. We just need to be flexible and dynamic to be able to shift to the changing marketplace that is mineral ownership in North Dakota.
Well, and I bring that up because I think people forget that sometimes, that when you have some sort of tracking software, some sort of analytics as a service, it's dynamic and it's always changing. It's not like, hey, we're done with it now, it just prints money. It doesn't work like that at all. So anyway, I thought I'd bring that up because to what level that it's tracked, you can go, some people go as far as trying to get involved with that advocacy. Other people more reactionary, because at the end of the day, that's what the service is to delineate to the people what their, like I say, their customized mineral wants and needs are.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep, exactly. We all fill different roles, integrated into this entire field of mineral rights in North Dakota. And they're all really important roles, but there's a need for someone to just provide a resource, and that's the need that we're looking to fulfill.
Last time we mentioned that the average person that got minerals out in the Bakken was, refresh my memory again, because I found that fascinating.
Yeah, the average person in North Dakota collecting minerals is a 65-year-old woman collecting less than $600 a month off of her minerals. So a little bit different picture than I think what most people think of as mineral owners, because I think most people assume that if you own minerals that you are a multimillionaire, that you've got several houses scattered around the country, and all these different things. But the truth is that mineral rights have been so divided among various generations and in-state and out-of-state parties and different family members, things along those lines, that a lot of it has become just so spread out and divided so many different times that the incomes for individuals can be they range a lot. There are certainly those who are making pretty significant revenue off of these things, but there are a lot who are realizing $600 a month isn't anything to sneeze at. Of course, it's something that you should be aware of, that you should be understanding, how that may change, because that's still a significant amount to, someone's life. But we wanted to make sure that, knowing that, not every single person who was collecting on minerals was making, millions of dollars a year off their minerals, that even for that 65-year-old woman who was collecting $600 a month, that she had a resource as well. And so that's ultimately why we created MineralTracker.
Were you raised in Watford City? I guess, what's your background when it comes to oil and gas? Because you're kind of that younger generation, and you seem to have a grasp on the industry. You have an understanding. You have a desire to keep the industry going. And I guess I just kind of wondered, what's your background when it comes to oil and gas? How did you get into that?
Of you, Jason.
What's that?
That's very perceptive of you. So you're right. I was raised in the Watford City area. My grandfather actually, he started in the oil and gas industry when he was in 8th grade. He dropped out of high school, began driving truck, ultimately became a driller for 2 decades or more, and then went on and started a downhole fishing company called Northern States that has been around in Watford City, North Dakota since the early 80s. And so my father, he took over that business, and I wound up from the time I was 13 years old, I was in there sweeping floors, and ultimately got a chance to learn a lot from just being around the industry from a young age. And then ultimately, when I was going through high school, I recognized that I had a bit of a talent for math, a bit of a talent for finance, and ultimately decided that I wanted to be in the oil and gas industry. And so I decided to go into petroleum engineering. And I was lucky enough that by the time I was a sophomore, University of North Dakota had just launched their first petroleum engineering classes. And so I ultimately got to go from being a 13-year-old kid sweeping the floor at a oil field service company, to becoming one of the first graduates from the University of North Dakota with petroleum engineering. And we always had that goal ultimately of going back and working with my grandfather and father, only to find out that the Northern States Fishing Tool Company didn't really have much of a need for a petroleum engineer. And so I did wind up going a slightly different route, got involved in acquisitions and divestment, had to move out of North Dakota for a period of time. And then about 4 years ago now, my wife and I, we've moved back to Watford City, which is home, and launched this entire business aimed towards helping mineral owners. And so, from my background that I have in oil and gas from a young age to my early professional career working in acquisitions and divestment, I've been able to draw that experience to help support local mineral owners, a lot of people that I grew up knowing here in Watford City. And I just think it is a really fun story. And yeah, I would say that the oil and gas industry is in my blood. I do have a passion towards continuing to see it thrive.
I would say so. Yeah, I'm always curious how people that are during that younger generation gravitate towards it, or how they ended up there, because it's the industry is going through some changes, so it's good to know which ones have an understanding of how it was built. And you're third generation then.
Yeah, I am third generation. I'm the fifth generation of my family to live out here in McKenzie County. My grandfather's grandfather homesteaded out in the Keene area, actually. So we've got really deep roots here, and I absolutely love Western North Dakota. I'm very passionate about seeing it continue to grow and develop, and it's been really fun to see how things have changed, through the boom and the downturns, and leveling out here in the Bakken. It's been really dynamic and a lot of fun.
What kind of update you got from Main Street, Watford City? It's one of the more fun cities to track, because it's, they say if your community gets 1% to 2% growth, you're a healthy community. 3%, you're thriving. 5%, you're just robust beyond belief. Watford City was like, what, 5,000%? I mean...
I'm trying to think, what is it? It's close to, I think it's grown maybe 6 times what it was when I was going to school here.
Okay, I want to say, I think I did a story at one time, and it was like a 300% growth or something like that, and 6 times wouldn't surprise me at all, but it was unprecedented growth. I mean, like I said, 5% means you're robust, and you guys tripled and quadrupled the population. But the thing that really is interesting to me is the amount of quality of life investments that went into Watford City to really ensure that people are going to stick around there, for years to come. And what kind of, I guess, changes have been made from when you were a kid growing up in Watford to now?
Oh man, it would take an entire show, I think, to list them all off. But I think in general, I really think that the leadership here in McKenzie County and Watford City They've been, I don't know if there's a better word than aggressive, or at least they're willing to take a risk. And I think that risk has really been rewarded in what they've been attempting. So we do have. I think that if you were looking at quality of life investments, I think that Watford would be at the forefront, very progressive in what we're trying to develop here as a thriving community, a place that people want to live. And even if you may have moved here, from Texas or Oklahoma or somewhere so far removed from North Dakota, we want to create a place here where you want to stay. And I really think that is what we've kind of come up with here in Watford City. From things like just a beautiful main street to new and exciting restaurants being born out of Watford City. The Rough Rider Center is an incredible facility that works as a convention center and recreation center. That thing is filled basically on a daily basis with all kinds of different activities. And I do not think that you would find likely another community the size of Watford that has a facility of that quality. And we really just see it as, Watford City is right in the heart of the Bakken. We want Watford City to continue to become a hub for this region, and a place that people want to be, and a place that people want to settle down long term. And I think that's really what we've created here. And it's been really fun to see, early on in the boom, we were experiencing increases in crime. Traffic was just absolutely awful. Watford had become a difficult place to live for a period of time as we were experiencing that really rapid growth early on. But the leadership here has done such a good job, I think, adjusting to that, to a point now where Watford City is not only the fastest growing city in North Dakota, one of the very fastest growing in the country, but we were actually voted nicest city in North Dakota in 2019. And we just continue to win awards like that, and we've seen the narrative of Watford shift from this scary oil field town to a really progressive and thriving place that people want to be. And so it's kind of fun to talk to people from around the state about Watford City, because everyone's hearing good things now, and so that's we're really happy that narrative is kind of shifted.
So coming up here, I want to say in the next 6 months or so, they're going to reevaluate all the 2.6 million acres of state-owned minerals, aren't they?
Yeah, and actually, it's not even a reevaluation. This will be the very first valuation.
No kidding. They haven't even evaluated them yet, huh?
No, and it's not uncommon. It's a really daunting task. There are 2.6 million net mineral acres. That accounts for about 7,700 wells in the state of North Dakota. The Department of Trust Lands manages the largest mineral position in the state of North Dakota. And so to drill into each one of those wells, each one of those spacing units, all of the undeveloped area that they have an interest in is a really daunting task, and it requires a very in-depth level of detail to be able to perform an analysis of that type. And so ultimately, we along with a handful of other companies participated in a proposal process to the state, and ultimately we at MineralTracker were awarded that contract. And so
no kidding, I didn't even know that.
Oh, did you not?
No, I didn't. I just knew that. I talked to Jody the other day, and I just remember her bringing that up. How something like that, 2.6 million, of course, stood out in my head. And so I thought, I'll ask you about that, because I think that I did, that's why I said reevaluate, because I just assumed that the valuation was already done. But so you guys are the ones that are going to do the valuation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome. Oh, well, how serendipitous was that question?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Who knew?
Well, just so people know, hey man, when you're on the Crude Life, our interviews are organic. We don't pre-plan them here, man.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's funny.
So it's going to be this summer. Is that right? When kind of you think things will come to fruition, or what's the timeline, I guess?
Yep, that's the plan. Is that we are looking at having a evaluation completed for the state. Probably July or August of this summer is what we're anticipating right now. Ultimately, this project, it's going to be by far the largest single project that we've worked on as a team. Though we've worked on large mineral valuations in the past, this will be the largest mineral valuation ever performed in the history of the state of North Dakota. And so we ultimately, through the bidding process, we were the only offers that were coming out of the state of North Dakota. And so we were really happy and a little bit proud too that, we were able to offer on something so important to the state of North Dakota, is evaluating their mineral position, and having that done here in the state. And so we think it's really cool that that's, something we're able to offer, not just in North Dakota, but, in Watford City, right in the heart of the Bakken. So we're excited to get into it. We're still working through some of the preliminary stuff and just gathering information. But ultimately, when the time comes around, we will be very busy for a number of months as we're putting that valuation together.
So I understand there's going to be some research, et cetera, put into this. Do you need to put the word out there? You know how they used to do the public service announcements in the newspaper, which I'm sure they still do it, but I have no idea. But is there any amount of like public service announcements that you guys are going to need through the course of this, or is it pretty? Do they already know who owns all the mineral? Do you know what I mean by that? Because sometimes people don't even know if they own minerals.
Yeah, right. No, I think the state is in a really good position right now. They've got an excellent management team at the Department of Trust Lands, headed up by Jody Smith. And so they will have the information that we will need in order to perform the valuation, which you're right. In a lot of the valuations that we do for individuals, it can be hard to track that information down. But fortunately, the state is in a good position where they've, got a good catalog of everything that they own. And, if we've got that as a starting point, knowing what you own, we're already further ahead than we are in most of the valuations that we wind up doing. Because usually you're right, there is that level of research that needs to be done early on to identify what is being appraised, because it's not quite as simple as, I own this house, or I own, this quarter section, or I own this, because we talked about, minerals are so divided that a lot of times mineral owners are not aware of what they own.
Well, and I remember too looking at some property. I want to say in either Wyoming or maybe it was South Dakota. I can't remember which one it was, but in some instances you don't get the minerals. In other ones you get half. I was like, you get half. Oh, okay. Like whatever. But now I understand more as I get older. But so it can become very complex. So talk to me about the service plans you have, because I know you guys have kind of a free introductory service plan at MineralTracker.com for those people who want to track it. Then you've got some different tiered pricing. But talk to me about your different service plans and, how people can benefit from what we were just talking about, because you've got some big changes coming.
Yeah. Good question. So you're right. At the very lowest level, we offer through MineralTracker what we call the basic plan. The basic plan is you can sign up for your own portfolio, enter all your wells and interests, and it's going to have, some of the tools that are available through the professional plan as well. But that starts at nothing. It's free. And so there's really no reason that anyone who's collecting any amount of minerals shouldn't be, looking into this, signing up for MineralTracker just based on the basic plan. The next level up is the Pro plan in MineralTracker, and what this includes, one of the most important things that this includes, among a handful of other tools that aren't available through the basic plan, is the inclusion of the future projections on each one of your wells. This is something that we don't automate. This isn't something that we've got an algorithm that goes through and says, if your well produced this much over the last 6 months, it's going to decline, X amount over the next 10 years. We are having an engineer look at every single one of these wells on a regular basis and update the future projections on each one of them, and that's being housed in MineralTracker. So we're doing decline curve analysis on every well in the state in order to fulfill that, 15,000 wells in total. And that's something that's really unique, that's not really offered anywhere else. And then beyond that, MineralTracker is built to be a standalone tool, something that an individual mineral owner can use, but for those who are looking for that next level of service, who are, they're collecting on their royalties. They know that there's a level of diligence that needs to go into managing these things correctly, but ultimately they just either don't have the time or don't want to be the person checking off on that. We do offer full mineral management services in which we will become the mineral manager for our clients. We're auditing revenue on a regular basis. We're looking at wells, reviewing division orders, helping with leases as necessary, and really just kind of plug in and manage it like it was our own minerals, essentially. And then there are a whole slew of other service offerings that we can provide on the professional services side, including mineral appraisals. We've helped people sell their minerals in the past because, they're ultimately, there are, reasons to sell your minerals if you've got life event coming up, something to a point where you need that lump sum right now. We can plug into that process and just ensure that if you do decide to sell your minerals, that you're going to get the best price possible for them. And then we've done large scale audits, and ultimately, we're a small enough team that we can be flexible. And if there is a problem or if there is an issue, a mineral owner can just bounce it to us, and there's likely a place that we can plug in to support them in that.
This might be a dumb question, but we're talking both oil and gas minerals?
Yep, that's correct. Both oil and gas minerals. I will say that we do not get involved in coal or uranium or rare earth materials. That's a little bit outside.
That was my next question, actually. I was going to be a little bit of a smart ass and say, well, what about palladium? What about water? I understand arsenic levels are kind of high in western North Dakota. So what about arsenic? That can be sold as a preservative. So did you know that, by the way? That's why the dinosaurs are preserved so well out there. It's because of the high levels of arsenic in the water.
No, I didn't. So it sounds like you know more about certain minerals than I do.
Well, you know me. I love to discuss basically any topic that has to do with oil and gas and beyond. And so we'll have paleontologists on and geologists and that sort of thing, and that's what they get into. And I just love it. Anytime I can learn a new angle towards how this Earth operates and how the world works, I absolutely love it. And so when I look at what you guys are doing. Boy, did you pick the perfect time, too. When it's minus 40 degrees outside and 70-mile-an-hour winds, that's the time to hunker down and do the analytic research, isn't it?
Yeah, you know it. It's easy to just plug in the winter in North Dakota.
Well, you can get in and hibernate and stay warm and everything, and then by the time, when it's, the summer, spring, fall, whenever, it sounds like summer, you're going to June, July, perfect time to get out there and share the results. Are you guys going to go and do any sort of campaign with this, or is the state going to do any sort of campaign with this in terms of sharing the results out there, or is this just pretty much cut and dry?
I don't have any insight as to what how the state is going to wind up presenting the results to the public. Our responsibility ultimately is to present it to the Department of Trust Lands and then the board there as well. And so we'll be happy to plug into, whatever role they want us to fulfill in that. But ultimately, our kind of end deliverable at this point in time is that valuation report that we ultimately will wind up presenting to the Department of Trust Lands board. And then also the state is going to begin using MineralTracker as just another tool in their belt, another resource to help manage their mineral position as well. And so as kind of an ongoing task, they're going to be using MineralTracker and employing that to help audit their mineral position and just have another tool that they can use to manage it.
So, that's fantastic. So I imagine, it'll be a collaboration going forward then. Where my mind was originally was the Williston Basin Petroleum Conference, which is in May. And whether I assume you guys are going to be there, if not with a booth, at least, there. Geez, who knows? You might even be presenting at some at some level at some point. The little side things they have going on there. But are you guys going to be at the conference?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's what I thought. But this information won't be done then.
No, it won't be done at that point.
Okay. That's where I was in my head, so that's why I didn't know. Because if it was, I'm sure you'd have some presentation there, or some information there, and everything. So I do see where this is going to be kind of cross promoted going forward at conferences, and just briefings and that sort of thing. Because this is quite an undertaking. If you guys are doing the first valuation, what is it, 2.6? Is that right?
Yep, 2.6 million.
The old memory still works occasionally. Look at that. All right.
Once in a while.
Well, that's fantastic. Sounds like a pretty good client too, with the state of North Dakota. I mean, the government's always a great client to get, and so good for you on that. But this is fantastic news. Sounds like things are going great. Watford City seems to be moving along pretty well out there in terms of robust nature. And the activity seems to be going well. How can people get in touch with you if they want to know more, and what type of things are on the horizon for MineralTracker? Give yourself a little plug here as we can conclude the interview, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who wants to get in touch with us, and we take phone calls, all day. Easiest way is to either go to MineralTracker.com. Our contact information is there. Our phone number is 833-842-2924. Or you can email us at info@mineraltracker.com. And we field all kinds of requests. There's nothing too crazy to throw out there to see if there's some place that we can plug in and become a resource for mineral owners. But ultimately on the horizon, Jason, I think we're likely going to be pretty tied up here for a little while with this Department of Trust Lands valuation, but ultimately we're going to continue to support the average mineral owner going forward too. We're definitely not planning on putting pause or pressing pause on anything else that we have going on while we're working through this large scale valuation for the state. We definitely have the resources to continue to serve the general mineral owner population, and so we're just going to continue plugging in where we can, and continue to be a valuable resource for the mineral owners here in the state of North Dakota.